Welcome, everyone, to episode number 24 of the Creator Series here on the Proven Knowledge Podcast. Today's guest is a singer-songwriter out of New Jersey who I've been in contact with for the last 4 or 5 months. Her name is Bobbie Rose. Today we talked about how she's currently attending NYU in New York, how she moved away from New Jersey, kind of her mentality as far as her recording process, and how actually her moving locations has kind of switched her mentality. She'll go in more detail in the episode. I found it kind of interesting. She also talked about her influences, Jhené Aiko, Rihanna, a lot of female artists. She says she loves female empowerment in music, and I'm all for that and everything. So I thought that was really amazing, and she says she's really trying to push her sound in that direction to change a lot of people's lives and hopefully inspire young girls to want to be artists as well, which is incredible. And we went into, the differences between recording live and recording in the studio, and how you kind of have to prepare yourself differently for both situations, but both require a certain mindset beforehand. Talked about a lot of other great things. She's working on an EP and an album. She just hasn't been able to record recently, but she said once she gets back to being able to go to the studio more frequently, that new music will be coming. And she only has a couple singles out, but I encourage everyone to go check them out right now. And I'm telling you right now, she's going to be a pretty big name because she just has that talent. So I was happy to get her on the show today. And without further ado, let's get into the episode. Okay, welcome everyone to episode number 24 of the Creator Series here on the Proven Knowledge Podcast. Today's guest is out of New Jersey. She's a singer-songwriter, and her name is Bobbie Rose. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Awesome. And like I said, thanks for waiting a few months. I know I kept you waiting on this and everything, and I had some people to get to first, but I'm glad to get you on the show today. So to start us off, just kind of give, for those who might not know you, kind of a background on how you got into music, just a little bit of your journey up to this point.
Gotcha. Yeah, I always loved music. I grew up listening to late 90s, early 2000s R&B from my mom, and Metallica and country from my dad. So always introduced to different music, and then just was always singing. Started with the typical toddler singing the national anthem, and then over the years, falling in love with my first CD from Rihanna to Miley Cyrus, and that whole era, especially also Ashanti and Ja Rule. And then falling into high school years, realizing that I loved Amy Winehouse and kind of copying her sound, but then finding my own within her. And throughout college, figuring out that I did not want to be a lawyer like I originally did, and getting into music, and just started listening to as many songs as I could and watching as many videos on songwriting and singing, and just starting. And only a year and a half ago, I believe, recording for the first time, and just going from there. But yeah.
That's awesome. I know you only have a few singles out right now, and I've heard all of them, and they all sound pretty good. Like you have the right direction going and everything. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you got. And we'll talk about later in this episode. We'll talk about what you got coming up and everything. So I know we were just talking before we started recording here about, 2020 has been kind of wild and everything. For you, just kind of give whatever you feel comfortable sharing, what have you done to kind of get through some of the craziness that 2020 has brought on for a lot of people?
My biggest thing that I have continued to remind myself just to keep me sane is, luckily no one in my family has gotten the virus. I haven't, no one, close to me, so I have to remind myself of that, and that has kept me sane, that I'm really blessed to have not been affected by the coronavirus in that way. But other than that, just honestly, I feel like all of us have hit mental breakdowns at some point throughout this time, and kind of accepting it because it's such a unknown time for all of us. Luckily, I got a boyfriend 2 weeks before the virus sent us all home from college, so having that support and just someone to talk to and get through it was really nice. And as always, music helped me, as it's always been my support system, even though the artists have no idea who I am. Yeah, it was just a lot of spending time with my family and cherishing every moment, and knowing it's okay to break down, because the anxiety consumed me at points, and unfortunately it led over into completely having writer's block, because it was like, how can I write when everything is changing? And it was definitely difficult, but I think just focusing on a positive every day is something that I've continued to do and did throughout quarantine and everything, and just hoping for there to be light at the end to get out of it. But it was just a lot of keeping my mental on the positive side of things and not letting the news consume me. That was the first step, shutting off the news. I couldn't watch.
And it's really hard to stay away from that too, because like, for example, social media is like, you open your phone, like you open Twitter and you're gonna see stuff even if you don't want to see it. You're gonna see it regardless. Like it's gonna be in your face pretty much all the time. So even that, I feel like you got to step away from that from a time too, and just kind of focus on like yourself and what you have to do, and really start focusing on that. So I think that's important too. But it's just like you said, like the uncertainty of it all when it first happened. It was just, no one really, we've never seen anything like it, so it's kind of like people didn't know how to handle it or whatever. So I think that, like what you just said, is pretty important. Like, have your family, have people close to you to talk to and everything, and just kind of, we've all been trying to figure out how to get through it in the right way. So I'm glad to hear that it's kind of been going better for you than, most people, I think. So you just talked about your writer's block and how that was kind of an issue. Maybe not during that time, but before, if you've ever had writer's block, how do you kind of, like, what do you think is the best method for you to push through that? And kind of, do you have to, like, take a break from it for a bit, maybe come back to the song and kind of figure it out later? Or do you have any specific thing you've ever done to kind of get through it?
Yeah, I only write at night. That's my thing.
I've heard that. I've heard that from a lot of writers, that it helps.
Yeah, like, it's just my entire like setup that I used to do is I would put on my little fairy lights and turn off all the rest of the lights, pull up a beat, and just get in front of my mic, hit record, and just completely freestyle and see what comes to me. And when I realized I couldn't even do that and went through the whole writer's block throughout quarantine, I was like, well, I need to try something. And in the past, it's been, okay, like take that 5-minute break. Just think of something else, or maybe come back to it the next night when your head's not so focused on schoolwork or not just so overwhelmed with a lot of other things. But over quarantine, I think what hurt me the most was I was back home in Jersey, and I can't write there. I can only write in New York, which sounds, insane, but being back home, it was kind of, the inspiration was gone. And I have inspiration, being back home, and I say in one of my songs, like, I'm true Jersey, but it's just, it brings me back to old me, and old me was not focused on music. So being in that environment, I just had to escape, go for the walks, just clear my head, and just kind of hear silence and just what's around me. And staying up those extra hours at night to lose sleep, but to hear my own thoughts and really listen to what my mind is telling me. And that's always what I've done, is just kind of tuning into me and not letting everything affect me, and that's helped. But definitely when it's a time like this, it was so hard.
I was going to say, it sounds like more of a mentality thing too, as far as just kind of like making sure you're in the right space to be able to create, because I feel like a lot of the times, even if we don't know it, like subconsciously we have a lot of things on our mind. And I know for me personally, like when I'm trying to create things and I feel like I have a ton of unfinished work that I haven't got to, I'm thinking about that, and it's distracting me from being able to create what I'm supposed to create in the moment. And I'm like, you just get frustrated and you have to just step away because you're just overwhelmed by all this stuff. So
literally, like if I'm trying to sing a song, I don't want to be thinking about my homework due at 11 a.m. the next day, because that's going to come across in it. And it's just, and that's the thing. I think what you said about being frustrated is, once, at least I know personally, once I hit that frustration point of like, why can I not write this song? Why am I not coming up with lyrics? Like, what is going on? Then the whole night is washed, because I'm just so focused on that frustration that takes over. And it's so difficult because then you're just angry at yourself and you're not using the correct emotion for the song.
I think at that point it's probably just better to step away though and not kind of force it out of you, because then it's not going to come out the way you want to anyway. So you might as well just take that break however long you need and just come back to it and start over or continue working on it to make it what you need to make it. So that's good.
Yeah.
That's it's always something people struggle with. So I've got a lot of different answers, so it's pretty interesting stuff. So before you record a song, are you doing any type of like vocal warm-ups that you've kind of been able to learn throughout trying to learn how to be a singer, or is there any specific thing you do before you actually record the songs you've written?
Yeah, I was such a choir kid. I was in chorus from 4th grade until I was a senior in high school. So I definitely took everything from my choir teachers with me, and I will for the rest of my life. So I do the typical warm-ups and make sure that, everything's being opened up. And then I learned some in another vocal class that I did for about 2 months with like buzzing my lips and different things, and just really taking a bunch of different ones and putting them together. And then this isn't really like a vocal warm-up, but just it's, for me, like, it just goes back to the mentality. Just before I get in the booth to record, it's like, okay, you're entering the door, so you're leaving everything behind. And that's also, like, for me, that's a whole warm-up process of, like, okay, you're going there, you're walking, or you're in the Uber. This is your time to kind of get all your thoughts situated and not think too much about the song, because then you'll overthink once you get there. But then as soon as you're there, it's the music, and that's it. And that takes some time because my mind is always going.
Have you had the opportunity to do any live shows yet, like perform live at all? No?
No.
I was
so
gonna,
sad.
I was gonna ask about your like the differences between that and actually like recording in the booth, because I know I've heard from a lot of artists that it's totally different. The preparation is totally different for performing live, because you're walking around, you're actually releasing more energy because there's lights coming down on you. You're probably sweating more, and like you got all these people. So I've heard that that's like a totally different experience than being just recording a song from scratch. But
yeah, I bet I wish I had. But in the past, I at least got to perform in front of people for like talent shows and stuff like that before I like obviously got to being serious now. And even doing just like one cover of a song, that would just be a completely different, like you're saying, like the lights, the people, everything. And it was very overwhelming because I was like, oh my gosh, like these lights, I'm sweating. How do I even prepare for that? And it's always like making sure there's so much water. Hydration is key, and it's insane. Especially with both live and recording. It's like if you're dry, it's gonna be heard. And same with either water or tea. Tea is my go-to. I love it.
Well, hopefully, live shows start coming back and you end up getting shows eventually as you put out more music and everything. So I'm sure you'll get some gigs here. So I know you mentioned some of your, influences at the beginning. Can you go more into detail about who you were listening to and kind of who has helped you shape your own sound?
Yeah. It all started with Ashanti, Ja Rule, Aaliyah, that whole era, and Destiny's Child. That started me at a young age to honestly pick up on, runs and riffs and ad-libs and all of the extra part of the vocals. And I didn't even realize it, but I was just doing it as a kid. And then as I got older, I see a lot of the emotion part of the influence from my music actually comes from Rihanna, because when I listen to her, it's just so raw to me, and you just can hear it in every breath and every lyric, and that's what I try to convey through my music, and that's what I want to make in my future music. And it started with, the focus on pop music with Don't Stop the Music, and then you go to the latest one and listening to Higher and switching between Higher, Needed Me, and Sex With Me. And they're all different vibes, but it's all, I don't know, for me, I just love the power that she has for, like, women within her music. And then from Rihanna to Amy Winehouse, Amy just brought me into the whole jazz side of the R&B sound. And that was the tricky part of learning how to break away from singing just like Amy to singing like Bobbie. And that was early high school for me. I would constantly be singing You Know I'm No Good, to the point where that's like my go-to song now, that if I just want to sing and I want to remind myself, like, okay, you're fine, your voice is good, just continue to sing, that's what I throw on because I know it by heart now. And it was then that I realized my voice was different than the girls in like my choir class that were just the typical, you know, either show tunes type sound or pop sound, and I loved R&B, and I was like, okay, this is a direction that I'm going to go in. And from that, it just stayed with Rihanna and Amy Winehouse until recently getting told that my sound reminds some people of Jhené Aiko. And then I started to listen to it, and I was like, wait, her vibe is calm, her vibe is sexual, and being like, yes, I'm that bitch. Like, I'm going to say what I want to do to men and what I can do and how good I am in different things. And I fell in love with it because I realized that's what I think in my mind, and that's what I want to portray through my music as well, because it's also what I do in my academic work. So intertwining all of that along with the sounds of Kehlani is the overall bubble, I'd say, of who's inspired me. And it's a lot of just powerful women. I've, of course, listened to so many amazing male artists, but I'm just so focused on the women that just sing about sex, and they really flip the script. And, you know, one of my favorite artists of all time is Nicki Minaj, because of her doing that with rap music. And just being, you know, obviously we have rappers like Lil Kim who did that as well, but it's just all female empowerment in that, and I never realized how important that was for me for my music until I started writing and realized, like, you know, why wouldn't that be when this is who I am as a person as well? But yeah, all the strong women that were singing their hearts out and giving it everything in a song is what made Bobbie Rose to be Bobbie Rose.
I'm a huge Jhené fan, so I can definitely kind of hear, like, you had the song, what was it called, Hit My Line, I think? I that one especially, I can kind of hear what, like, the draws from it a little bit, just like, and the way she, like, combines, like, different styles, like, she'll do, like, a softer acoustic type song, and then she'll do, like, R&B mixed with trap, and just do totally different things, and it works so well every time. So
sounds so good. I love the combining genres. I love everything, the crossovers, because I don't really consider myself to be one genre, because I'm so, you know, there's days when I'm like, well, this has more of an alternative R&B sound, and it's more going towards, like, Ari Lennox. And then you'll go over into, you know, another song where it's kind of can be considered dance or pop, and it's just everything's all over the place. And that's what I think so fun about today is you see so many artists making different albums. I mean, Ariana Grande is about to come out with her next album, and it's going to be R&B focused. I'm so excited. But it's really cool to be seeing so many artists be doing so many different things, and especially when we have these female R&B singers doing kind of like singing rap type songs.
I think it's good, too, where music is heading. I think it's heading in a direction where the genre is kind of not becoming as a factor anymore, and it's kind of just like, is it good or is it not good? And that's really all that matters at the end of the day, is just, do we like it or do we not like it? So I always love artists that kind of, you know, have that mentality as well, and they kind of push for that. It's just like, make the best music you can make. So out of all those artists, or maybe someone else, maybe someone you know personally, are there anyone you want to do a collaboration with eventually? Maybe do a song with?
So many. I would love to do, clearly nothing can be done, unfortunately, with Amy Winehouse. But I think the first one that comes to mind is honestly Kehlani, because she's a powerhouse. And I remember watching her as a young kid on America's Got Talent. So I really remember the beginnings of her and knowing, like, she's going to be someone. Other than that, there's a lot of artists at this school that, you know, the list goes on in NYU of creatives. And right now, once I have time with classes, I'm really looking forward to collaborating with an artist by the name of Afterthought. And he just graduated from NYU in May, and he's a talented producer, rapper, everything. So that's definitely the most excited collaboration to do.
I know Kaylani, her album that she just came out with, that was one of the biggest albums of the year, and I haven't heard the whole album, but everything I heard from it, I was like, man, this is freaking awesome. And she's another artist too that like she does a lot of different things, but she does them all well. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, and she's able to blend with so many different artists, and that's what I really appreciate is seeing how many artists someone can work with and how well it sounds, and she blows me away. And if I could, dream collaboration that I forgot to say would be my favorite artist of all time, Lil Wayne. Oh. That is the goal. To have a song like he had with Ariana Grande, ever since hearing that, I was like, I need it. That's what I need.
He's a legend. I'm glad to see him kind of back, like doing a lot of music now, because I know like around 2013 he was talking about retiring, and he was kind of like stopped putting out albums and everything, and now he's kind of back on putting out a lot of music and being on features and everything. So it's good to see him back. I definitely grew up on a lot of Lil Wayne, so that's always someone I look up to as well. I don't know if you've recorded out of studios a lot or if you've recorded more at home. Is there a preference as far as that goes, or does it not really matter the location as far as where you're recording at?
I have done both. I've done, kind of at-home studio situations, and I've done at studios. I love going to Quad in Midtown. Personally, just the experience has always been amazing, and the quality is crazy. I also, just for my own self, when I've recorded at home studios, almost every single time, I just felt off. Like I wasn't meeting my full potential, and that's probably something in the back of my mind that I just don't know what's going on. But yeah, I think it was having the open space at these studios with other people around and not being enclosed changed the whole vibe for me. And I like to be, isolated and in my own little world on recording that, because if you're distracted, I don't think it's going to come out to be the best that it can be, because when you're isolated, you're in the booth. And even if it's in a booth at an at-home studio, I just never have really experienced that except for one time. You got to go to where that song is, exactly what you're talking about in the song. And if you think about something else, it's not going to shine through of what you're trying to do.
I know, like, I've heard with studio setting, it's kind of more like who's in the room and not really like, there could be a lot of people in the room, but kind of what are they doing there? If they're just kind of messing around or they're just there to be there and they're not really contributing to the creation process, then it might be a distraction. But if you have the right people there, I think it's going to be even better, because they're going to be able to feed you with the right ideas to be able to make the song much better. So it's almost,
I agree.
Yeah, so it's almost better than even being by yourself at times. So I could see how that would kind of like be a factor for it all.
Yeah.
So I know you're on Instagram. I think you're on Twitter. I'm not sure. How do you utilize social media as far as like pushing your music to like get fans or kind of get people, listening to what you have to put out?
I've noticed that Twitter is now the new thing, even though Twitter's been around forever, of getting engagement. So for Instagram, what I want to get back into now that I'm back in New York, fully settled, and not home where I'm going to be bothering my parents by recording covers weekly, is recording those videos of me singing and posting them, because you use it, you use the hashtags, which ones to do, which ones work, which ones bring in certain people, and that's all about getting the new people. Because yes, it's great that you get the love from your current Instagram followers, but you always want to expand. From my experience in the past, when I posted them weekly, I saw large numbers of engagement, and when I wouldn't post them and kind of died down for a little, those followers went away. So it's all about staying up with it, and that's what I'm trying to get back into. And then in terms of when I have a song coming out or when it drops, I make sure to DM it to as many people as possible. So for pre-save, send that out. Then send like a reminder to be like, hey, it comes out tonight, like check it out. And then sending out when it does drop to make sure like, people are checking out not only your social media, but then your music on the platforms and just getting engagement and getting support. And the support means so much. Just seeing people repost it on the stories is amazing because you never know who from their following is then going to look as well. And on Twitter, it's so much easier because all you have to do is, post the link, post your music, anything, and then just get the retweets and get people to post it as well. And when I released my latest single, What's Good, I had gained a lot of followers from school because of quarantine. And I had been posting about it and posting about it and posting about it. And the second it dropped, it was the most tweets I've had about a song ever. And it was just realizing that it's all about connecting with people. And you can't expect to get support if you're not replying to comments and not replying to messages from people. And it's also nice to just get to talk to people, I believe, and connect with anyone that you can. And gaining those connections will then get your numbers up for engagement on social media and then also your streams, and it all plays together. But I think just using all the advantages of being able to share on the apps, no matter what it is, even Facebook, is the most important thing.
I think a lot of people forget about the personable aspect of it. Like, it's called social media. It's to be social. So, like you said, if someone's leaving, like, a comment and they're like, hey, I really like this song, like, great job, you should be like, hey, thank you. You shouldn't just leave them and just leave them go because they're going to be like, well, I commented and they didn't even notice my comment. They didn't even see my comment or whatever. So I think, like what you said, is just the best thing to do is just kind of use it for what it's meant to be used for and just try and bring in new fans as much as you can. And sometimes you're going to lose followers. It's going to fluctuate up and down no matter what. But I think as long as you're making progress, that's kind of the most important thing about social media in general. But
yeah, I think definitely it's the talking to people on there because who's going to want to listen to your music if you're not a nice person?
They have to be able to be able to relate to you as a person as well. Like you got to think about all the artists that like we listen to, like whoever your favorite artist is. It's not just you like their music, you also like them as a person as well, and you can relate to what they're saying and what they do every day. You know what I mean? Like you follow their journey. So it's really, you have to create a journey for fans to be able to follow as well. And social media is like the best way to do it nowadays. So it's all interesting stuff to me. I don't know if do you have like a manager or anything right now, or are you kind of just solely operating your whole thing yourself?
Yeah, solely operating, figuring it all out in these beginning times, which is definitely a struggle. But it's also fun to figure it out. And I think right now, I've really thought about this a lot. And I'm like, right now, I'm figuring out my sound. I'm figuring out the steps I want to take next. And for the beginning, I'm good on my own, and I'll get, advice from people and ask different things. And, there's some advice that I take bits and pieces, some advice that I take the whole thing, but my main focus is no matter where this journey takes me is just staying true to myself and making sure that everything I'm doing lines up with who I am as a person and who I want to be as an artist as well, and that it's the same thing and not two separate things.
I think that's the best mentality to have when it comes to that, though, because I've mentioned this in past episodes. I think people try and rush into having a situation that they think is going to, help them out a lot, but they don't actually think about all the moving parts to it, and then they get in with the wrong people, and it's not right for their situation, what they're trying to do with their career. So they end up making a lot of mistakes. So I think what you're trying to do is just take your time with it and see where it goes, which people don't have patience like that a lot of the time, and they, like I said, they rush into things. So I think it's good that you have that mentality moving forward. So I think only good things are going to come out of that. How have you so far been able to market yourself, like as far as budgeting, and do you have to set aside a certain amount of money for music every month that you're going to use for releases, maybe studio time? How has that worked for you up until this point?
It was putting aside some money in terms of, paying for promotions on social media and different things and releases. And studio time. Of course, I saved up for that and made sure I was, taking some of the paycheck, putting it for this, putting it for that, this and that. And luckily, I have an amazing family. And for the last Hanukkah, Christmas, I told everyone, I was like, please, studio time money. And, people were giving me money for that sole purpose. And to have family members that do that and actually support my goals and my dreams and everything is amazing. So right now I have some saved up for the next time I can go in once it's safe. But other than that, it's a lot of just figuring that out more for the future as I have more music to put out, so there'll be more expenses of different things. But I've just, done a little bit here, done a little bit there, but I haven't been able to do a whole bunch just due to my current budget and, having my work-study job at college. But it's definitely, when people talk about being an artist and the challenges financially and everything, it's definitely something that I've always had my eye on because it's scary. But I think just figuring it out as I go and budgeting as I have been, as the amounts increase, will be a plan.
Probably the best way to go about it, though, because this kind of goes back into the patience thing. I think people want they want it all to happen all at once, but that's not really reality. It's like it's going to take years and years and years, and it's going to take years of practice with that financially. I've been actually in high school we had finance classes and we learned some stuff. I've actually been going back in on that and kind of learning more about budgeting and how to properly set aside money per month and things like that. Things that have nothing to do with music, but they're all going to come back to your career at the end of the day. If you want to thrive, you have to know how to be smart with that type of thing as well. So
yeah, money has always been a struggle in my life, and I don't come from money and any of that, so I've always been teaching myself, even since I was a child, of this is what not to do, this is what to do. And it even comes down to just, the concept of quote-unquote adulting and seeing what's important for where the money goes. And I think the biggest part of being an adult that I think is so hard to grasp, and I figured it out, was just asking for help. And because you're not a kid anymore, it doesn't mean that you don't have to ask for help. And I ask for help for different things in terms of just life, music, anything. When I finally was figuring out that this old mic I had is clearly not what I need going forward, looking at what do I really want for the holidays. And 2 holidays ago, finally getting a good mic, and just stepping up and not so much of, oh, that's a cute top, or those are cute boots, and asking for things that are actually going to benefit me in the long run for life, and not just things that are trendy.
I know when I was in high school, I used to buy shoes freaking 3 times a year, and I stopped that. I haven't bought a new pair in 4 years because I'm I can't be spending $300 on shoes when I could take that and invest that into my career and what I'm actually trying to do. So it's more about are you actually serious about this or are you not? That's what's going to separate the two, in my opinion. But that's good to hear that you also have that mentality, I think. So I know we've been talking about your songs. So what do you have an album upcoming? Do you have an EP you're working on? Do you want to go into detail about what new music do you have and when we can expect that to come out?
Yeah. So I have the 2 singles out right now, and they are focused on wanting this one specific guy. And now that I did what I said in those songs, I have achieved that goal. And now he is my amazing boyfriend. So the journey kind of continues now. And it goes from me just expressing how much I want him to now being in the moment and being whoa, this is all happening, and it's everything I imagined and more. And that's where our music is going to go next. It's going to still have, I want to put out an EP that has, the songs that are, it's going to be half and half. First half is back in those moments of the early months of 2020 before we were together, and just yearning for his love and not knowing why I couldn't have it. And then switching to the part where we're now together, and I believe that, it'll be a huge gap in the journey if I were to just jump to, 8 months now almost in our relationship to being so in love and so happy after just expressing that, oh my God, I want this guy. So I'm going to take us all back to the beginning stages of it and just show, it's not going to be the happy love song because that's just not me musically. And it's going to be more of the songs of comparing and being like, this is what I always wanted. This is how I was always treated in the past. And talking about that experience of, unfortunately, so many of us, it doesn't matter what gender you are. We all go through so much pain when it comes to the word love. And that can be in friendships, romantic relationships, or even family, and that's going to be expressed a lot within the music coming up. And my life is not all butterflies and rainbows, so my music probably at this point, I don't see that being where my music goes because that's just not what life is to me. There's always been bumpy roads, so that's going to be up next. I don't know when, because I don't know when I'll get back in the studio with safety and all of that, but definitely working on it and focused on getting that out, because if music, can be released, it definitely can help us all get through this time as we're still going through it, but that's what will be next, and it'll just be this journey that I'm on because I've always wanted to just tell a story. I like the storytelling aspect of music, and I want to just tell the story of my life. And on the other side, I have this album concept of calling it Under 20. And it's all the crazy shit that has happened in my life. Because when the album comes out, one day, it'll really, shock a lot of people to hear how much this basic girl from Jersey has gone through. And just continuing to, prove none of us know what anyone's going through. And that's a huge important thing I'm always thinking about. So it's just a lot of telling the story of who I am and where I'm at and where I'm going.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing all of it whenever it comes out. And I think it's kind of cool, too. You're kind of like putting to music what you're living in the moment as well. Like I know a lot of artists, they kind of, do a lot of stories from the past, or maybe they tell other people's stories, but to tell a story that you're living out, as it's going is even more impressive to me. So that's going to be awesome to hear. So we talked about you're on social media. Can you kind of give your handles, where people can find you and all that good stuff?
Yeah. I am on both Instagram and Twitter at It's Bobbie Rose. And I am always excited to see new followers. And it is ITSBOBBIEROSE. It's fun. You'll see more of my personality on Twitter than on Instagram. But yeah, I'm out there and ready to connect with people.
Awesome. So if you could go back 10 years, Bobbie, 10 years ago, tell yourself anything about life, about music, whatever, what would you tell yourself?
I would tell myself it gets worse before it gets better. But it gets really good, and the dreams that you have right now of living in New York, going to NYU Tisch, and being a singer, they all come true. But you have to work hard because it's not going to come to you if you don't.
So 10 years from now, where do you think you want to be?
10 years from now, I'll be 31. I want to be recording. I want to still be in New York City. I want to be a name that people know. And I know that's a lot to accomplish in 10 years, but I've gotten this far somehow of accomplishing things, and I want it badly. And I want to be, I want to be a name that's on the radio and not making songs just to go viral. And making music with a purpose and just be happy in this city, living the life that I'm thinking of now. Oh, yeah.
It's a lot to process because 10 years seems like it's a long time, but it'll be here before you know it. So
I think about 10 years ago, and I was just 11 in 6th grade, and life is so
totally different.
Yep. Yeah.
So do you have any final words of wisdom today?
the most important thing is, to anyone that is a creator, just stop listening to the people that say that you shouldn't be doing that with your life because it won't make money. Because at the end of the day, just making money does not put a smile on your face. And creating art, I mean, it's what has changed the world, in my opinion. So just continue to follow what your gut and what your heart is telling you to do, and follow your passions and don't give up.
Well, Bobbie, that's all I had for you today. I appreciate you getting back to me again, like I said, about being on the episode today. This was a great time. I appreciate you sharing all your stories, and I look forward to hearing your music, and hopefully, like I said, you get some live shows coming up and whatnot, and hopefully we can do this again sometime, maybe in person. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you so much for having me. I had such a great time. This was great.
Thank you guys for listening today. That was episode 24 of the Creator Series. We'll be back this time next week. As always, hit that support button on your podcast streaming platform if you want to send funds. It goes towards us getting more guests, better guests, making the show overall a better experience for you guys as the listeners. So once again, thanks.